Okay, this morning we're going to be talking about things the Lord hates. So in that, I want us to turn to Proverbs chapter 6. Proverbs chapter 6, starting in verse 16. Proverbs chapter 6, starting in verse 16. It says, "These 6 things doth the Lord hate, yea, 7 are an abomination unto him: a proud look, a lying tongue, hands that shed innocent blood, a heart that deviseth wicked imaginations, feet that be swift in running to mischief, a false witness that speaketh lies, and he that soweth discord among the brethren." Before we get into this, let's talk about that word hate. Hate's a strong word, isn't it? But that word hate hasn't changed like so many other words in our dictionaries. That word hasn't changed a lot. It still pretty much has the same meaning. It's used 179 times in the Bible. Usually we use the word hate when we're talking about, I hate broccoli, I hate cauliflower. Now that's usually how we use the word hate, but really hate is this intense or passionate dislike for somebody or someone, to loathe. That's really what hate is. Sometimes we don't really use it in the real meaning of what it is, but hate really is a strong word. Generally, given this thought, we usually think of hate as something bad. But is it ever right for Christians to hate? Have we ever asked ourselves that question? Is it ever right for Christians to hate? And the answer is yes. The Lord hates 6 things in particular. So this morning we're going to talk about those. The first one, a proud look. Some translations say haughty eyes. This idea is this proud and vain to the point of arrogance, this high self-esteem that you look down on others. A good example of this is found in Luke chapter 18. Luke chapter 18, starting in verse 9. Luke 18, starting in verse 9. It says, "And he spake this parable unto certain which trusted in themselves, that they were righteous and despised others. 2 men went up into the temple to pray, the one a Pharisee and the other a publican. The Pharisee stood and prayed thus with himself, God, I thank thee, that I am not as other men, extortioners, unjust, adulterers, or even as this publican. I fast twice in the week. I give tithes of all that I possess. And the publican, standing afar off, would not lift up so much as eyes unto heaven, but smote his breast, saying, God, be merciful to me, a sinner. I tell you, this man went down to his house justified, rather than the other. For every one that exalteth himself shall be abased, and he that humbleth himself shall be exalted." This idea of a proud look, it's almost like that greater than now. I'm better than you. I'm the best. I have such high self-esteem. I'm so proud of myself that I'm better than you. That's what this is. And the Lord hates this. Jesus commands that we be different. He says in Matthew chapter 5 and verse 3. Matthew chapter 5 and verse 3. He says, "Blessed are the poor in spirit, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven." Verse 5, "Blessed are the meek, for they shall inherit the earth." Jesus wants us to be meek. He wants us to be poor in spirit, not exalting ourselves, not thinking that we're better than everybody else. Second, a lying tongue. We talked about this a little bit this morning in class. Last time I was here, last Sunday, we talked about the attributes of Satan, and he has principles, and one of those is to lie. John 8:44, the devil invented lying. He's the father of it. This is an attribute of Satan. We think about lying. It's something that we consider some of the best men, the patriarchs, the kings of Israel, the apostles, something they all suffered with. Abraham lied, saying that Sarah was his sister in Genesis 20 and verse 2. Isaac lied and said the exact same thing in Genesis 26:7. Jacob lied, saying that he was Esau in Genesis 27:19. Joseph's brothers lied about him being dead in Genesis 37. We think of King David, the man after God's own heart, lied several times. The Apostle Peter, the one that said, "I will never leave you, Lord," lied then, but he also lied later in saying that he would deny Christ 3 times. He said, "No, I won't," but he denied Christ 3 times. Third time, he cursed God. An apostle. The judge, Samson, he lied to Delilah. All these men we see as great suffered with lying. Why? Because it's so easy to do, number one, but it sounds good at first, don't it? Lying. Usually you mess up, and either you can confess what you did and get usually in trouble, or you can lie and bypass it all. That sounds good at first, and you think, well, that'll get me out of trouble, I'll do it. But in the long run, you're really just getting in more trouble. In case you get out of it, God knows. God knows everything. He knows that you're lying. Lying is made so insignificant, but it's really not. It's a problem, and God hates it. Jesus wants us to be different. He says in Ephesians chapter 4, verse 25. Ephesians chapter 4 and verse 25 says, "Wherefore, putting away lying, speak every man truth with his neighbor, for we are members one of another." Jesus hates lying, God hates lying, and commands that we put it away and speak truth. Because we are commanded to. Because lying, really, we think it's helping us by staying out of trouble, but really what it's doing is putting us in more trouble. And we are commanded not to do so. Third, hands that shed innocent blood. That's murder. Let's talk about murder. The best definition I heard of murder was by Glenn Colley. He said murder is the deliberate taking of innocent human life. Well, you say you're driving down the road, someone jumps out in front of you, and you can't stop the car fast enough, and they deceased. They don't make it through that. Is that murder? No, it wasn't deliberate. What about corporal punishment? That is not innocent human life. What about killing animals for food? Is that murder? No, it's not human life. What about you get angry with someone to the point where you want to hurt them, you do so, they don't survive? Is that murder? Yes, it was deliberate. They were innocent and they were human. What about abortion? Is that murder? Well, is it deliberate? Well, yes, you have to sign papers. Were they innocent? That child did nothing to you. Is it a human? Well, here's the part where they argue, well, that is not a goat. That is not an elephant. I know that sounds funny. That is a tiny human being that you are murdering. So yes, abortion is murder, and God hates it. We want to teach people the gospel, not kill them. That's why God hates murder. Next, those that devise wicked plans in their heart. There's a difference between you sinning in a moment of weakness and when you willfully do so. And Micah talked about those that laid down and made wicked plans in their heart only to wake up the next morning and do so. That's what that's talking about. You make these plans in your mind, these sins that you want to do, and you do it. You want to sin. You want to. Not that you do it, but you want to. We should, as Christians, never want to sin. Let's turn to Matthew 5 and verse 8. Matthew chapter 5 and verse 8. Says, "Blessed are the pure in heart, for they shall see God." Those that are pure in heart, not those that think on wicked things, not those that want to do these wicked sins and they just think them in their mind and how they would like to do them. We are blessed for a pure heart, one that doesn't want to sin, one that tries their best to avoid it, not one that wants to sin. Next, those feet that run rapidly into evil. That's someone that purposely tries to sin. They do it purposely. They know God said not to do this, but they do it anyway. I think of children in this. You tell the children, you don't need to do this. And I have a nephew. I say, don't do that. And he looks at you. I'm like, don't touch that. And he touches it. They're willfully knowing what you don't need to do, but they do it anyway. That is a foot that runs rapidly into evil. You're purposely trying to sin. Turn to Psalm chapter 52, verses 1 through 5. Psalm chapter 52, verses 1 through 5. Says, "Why boastest thou thyself in mischief, O mighty man? The goodness of God endureth continually. Thy tongue deviseth mischiefs like a sharp razor, working deceitfully. Thou lovest evil more than good, and lying rather than to speak righteousness. Thou lovest all devouring words, O thou deceitful tongue. God shall likewise destroy thee forever. He shall take thee away, and pluck thee out of thy dwelling place, and root thee out of the land of the living." This idea of feet that run rapidly into evil is you want to sin and you do it. God says, "Thou shalt not do this," and you're not supposed to do it, but you want to do it anyway. Sin is in some shape, form, or fashion fun, or people wouldn't do it. So that sin is fun, and I know I'm not supposed to do it, but you know what? I'm going to do it anyway, because it's fun. And we are, as Christians, are commanded to be different. Romans chapter 12 and verse 9. Romans chapter 12 and verse 9. Says, "Let love be without dissimulation, abhor that which is evil, and cleave to that which is good." We as Christians are to abhor evil. We are to abhor sin, which means we are to want to stay away from it. We are not to want to be around it. We're supposed to get rid of it. We are not as Christians to want sin, to do it, and no, we're not supposed to. We as Christians are to stay away from it, to fight against it, to abhor it. Next, a false witness that speaketh lies. That is a gossiper and a slanderer. We talked about those this morning in class. A gossiper and a slanderer. Let's turn to Exodus chapter 20 and verse 16. Exodus 20 and verse 16. It says, "Thou shalt not bear false witness against thy neighbor." The Bible commands that we don't do these. Gossip and slander is like a circle. You have this gossip, and you have it, and you tell it to somebody, and it goes around. Sooner or later, it's going to come to that person that you're gossiping about. And most likely, it's going to hurt them and offend them. And the Bible says it is better that you have a millstone wrapped around your neck and you're thrown into the deeps of the ocean than to offend one of these, the least my little ones, a Christian. When we gossip, when we slander, we are going to offend or hurt somebody. It's just going to happen. Gossip and slander hurts people. And when you gossip and when you slander, usually what happens is you judge somebody. When you judge somebody, you're judging the law. And when you judge the law, really what you're saying is, "God, I know you're the judge, but I think you're not doing your job correctly. Let me judge this person how I think I should judge them." You're pretty much telling God he ain't doing his job as a judge. That's really what happens. When you gossip, when you slander, it comes around. And usually you judge someone. And it hurts people. And it divides. It makes people angry. It turns people against each other. It makes a big mess. That's really what it does. It makes a really big mess. Lastly, I want to look at that last one, number 7. "He that soweth discord among the brethren." What's that? He either that teaches false teachings and divides the church, or he that simply just divides the church or tries to. We talked about last time I was here, division. Satan loves that because in division, Christians become weak and vulnerable to sin and fall. In division, when the church is divided, it's hard to stand. Abraham Lincoln made the statement, "A house divided can't stand." The Roman Empire divided and crumbled. congregations that divide and split over things usually crumble. A lot of people fall away. A lot of people are tempted and fall. John chapter 17 and verse 22. I want us to turn there. John chapter 17 and verse 22. Let's actually start in verse 21. That they all may be one, as thou, Father, art in me, and I in thee, that they also may be one in us, that the world may believe that thou hast sent me. And the glory which thou gave me, I have given them, that they may be one, even as we are one. I in them, and thou in me, that they may be made perfectly in one, and that the world may know that thou hast sent me, and hast loved them, and thou hast loved me. We are to be one, so the world will know God sent Jesus. When we're one, when we're together, the world sees, and they want to be like us. If we're divided, if we're arguing, if we're falling away, why would the world want to be like us anyway? I mean, if we're a mess and gossiping about each other, lying, murdering, running into mischief, trying to sin, wanting to sin, why would the world even want to be like us anyway? I mean, if anything, we're just like them. What's the difference? We've just got more rules, really. The world won't want to be like us if we're just like them. So this is why God hates these things, because not only does it hurt the church, it makes the church look bad, it makes the world not want to be like us. It makes the world look at the Christianity, the church, Christians, and say, why would I even want to be part of that? These things hurt the church. Gossip, you think, well, that doesn't really hurt anybody. Yes, it does. It does. Slander does. Lying, that really doesn't affect anybody. Yes, it does. It may not affect you right then, but on the day of judgment, the book of life will be open, and you're going to be judged accordingly. What about wanting to sin? Devising plans in your heart to sin? That is not a pure heart. That's not wanting to even be a Christian. If you're wanting to be the old man that you buried in baptism and you're wanting him back, that's not wanting to be a Christian. If you're embracing sin with open arms, that is not wanting to be a Christian. We should want to get rid of sin, not embrace it. This morning, I want us to understand these things the Lord hates. We should too. Hate is not always a bad thing if we're hating the things the Lord hates. And there are 6 of them, and we should too. Maybe there's someone here this morning. Maybe you're not a Christian. You've never really thought about it. You'd like to study, though. We'd love to study with you. Maybe you're not a Christian. You've heard the word. You believe that Jesus Christ is the Son of God. You're ready to confess your sins and be baptized and added into the Lord's church. We'll do so. Maybe you're a Christian. You fell away. You've sinned publicly and need prayers of the church. We'll pray with you and for you while we stand and sing the song of encouragement. Years are spent